Salt crusts the periscope lens. The North Atlantic sun burns white through a thin haze, turning the sea into hammered steel. Inside U-505, the air is already 40 degrees Celsius and thick with diesel fumes, sweat, and fear. Kapitän Leutnant Harald Lange presses his eyes to the rubber eyepiece one last time. What he sees makes him smile for the first time in weeks. 6 fat merchant ships, no escorts in sight. Just a lone, squat aircraft carrier plodding along at the rear, barely bigger than a destroyer. He knows the type. American Jeep carriers, slow, thin-skinned, carrying maybe a dozen planes at most. Easy meat. "Surface!" he snaps. The diesels cough alive. U-505 breaks the surface like a breaching whale, water cascading off the dull gray casing. Men spill onto the bridge, blinking against the blinding light, grinning at the sight of all that tonnage just waiting to die. Lange raises his binoculars. The carrier is close now, close enough to read her name painted in faded white letters, USS Guadalcanal. He laughs under his breath. An escort carrier. They might get a few wildcats off the deck before his quadruple 20mm flak tears them apart. "Battle stations! Surface! Load all tubes!" The gunners swing their weapons toward the sky, confident, almost bored. The merchants are scattering like frightened sheep. This will be over in minutes. Then the first wildcat lifts off the tiny deck. Then a second. A third. They climb fast, too fast, turning toward the U-boat with murderous intent. Lange's smile freezes. The first wildcat rolls in from the sun, engines snarling like an angry chainsaw. Its 650 cal sparkle, bright orange stitches walking across the water straight toward U-505's conning tower. Men scream. The bridge erupts in blood and splintered steel. A 20mm gunner is cut in half before he can traverse his mount. Another leaps overboard, preferring the sharks to what is coming. Lange ducks as tracers snap past his head, so close he feels the heat. He grabs the voice pipe. "Dive! Dive! Crash dive!" But the boat is too slow, too heavy with fuel, still riding high from the surface run. Valves slam open, water roars into the tanks. U-505 begins to settle, painfully, like a drunk trying to stand. Then the Avengers arrive. 2 Grumman TBMs, black crosses under their wings, bellies swollen with depth charges. The lead pilot, Lieutenant William F. Davis, call sign Indian, pushes his stick forward and drops right down the U-boat's throat. You can almost see his face through the canopy, calm, professional, already bored with how easy this is. 4 depth charges tumble out in perfect stick spacing. They hit the water with dull splashes, then detonate under the hull. The ocean turns into a hammer. U-505 is lifted bodily, stern first, then slammed back down. Lights shatter. Men are thrown against bulkheads. Somewhere aft, a torpedo warhead cracks loose and rolls across the deck plates like a bowling ball made of death. Lange claws his way back to the bridge hatch, blood streaming from a split forehead. He looks up one last time. More wildcats, more Avengers, and now the destroyer escorts are closing at 28 knots. Chatfield, Pope, Pillsbury, Flaherty, Jenks. 5 lean greyhounds racing in to finish the kill. For the first time in his war, Harald Lange feels something colder than the Atlantic seeping into his bones. These are not scattered convoy escorts. This is a pack built for one purpose, to hunt U-boats like foxes. And the fox has just stepped into the trap. Water jets from ruptured pipes like fire hoses. Red emergency lanterns paint everything in blood light. Men slip on the tilting deck plates, clutching broken limbs, shouting over the deafening alarm klaxon. Harald Lange staggers into the control room, gripping the periscope support to stay upright. His executive officer, Oberleutnant zur See Paul Meyer, looks at him with wide, disbelieving eyes.
Capitan, they launched 6 aircraft in under 4 minutes from that little ship. Longue wipes blood from his face and stares at the depth gauge. 30 meters, 40 meters. The hull groans under the pressure. He knows what this means. Everyone in the Kriegsmarine knows the rumors. American hunter-kill groups. A jeep carrier loaded with planes, ringed by destroyer escorts that never leave its side. But rumors are one thing. Seeing it happen, feeling your boat get mauled by aircraft launched from what looks like a converted grain hauler, that's something else. Meyer grabs his arm. They're not hunting convoys. They're hunting us. Only us. A terrifying thought hits Longue like another depth charge. How many of these groups are out here? How many merchant hulls have the Yankees turned into floating airfields overnight? The sonar man rips off his headphones, face pale. Herr Kalju, high-speed screws, 5 bearings, closing fast, and more aircraft overhead. They're pinging us. Another pattern of depth charges detonates closer this time. The lights die completely. Glass shatters. A torpedo mechanic screams as a battery plate explodes in acid and flame. In the darkness, Longue hears his men crying. Not shouting orders, crying. Seasoned veterans who have sunk 100,000 tons of shipping between them reduced to frightened boys. For the first time, Longue understands the Battle of the Atlantic isn't slipping away. It's already lost. The Americans didn't build more U-boats. They built something smarter, something that makes every wolf in the ocean the prey. And right now, his wolf is bleeding, blind, and running out of ocean to hide in. Then the chief engineer bursts in, soaked in oil, voice cracking. Capitan, we've lost both electric motors. Rudder jammed. We're leaking from every seam. If we go deeper, we die. If we surface, they're waiting. Longue closes his eyes for 1 second, just one. He sees his wife in Hamburg, his daughter's face. Then he opens them again. Prepare to surface, prepare to scuttle. But even as the words leave his mouth, a new sound echoes through the hull. The sharp, metallic ping of a grappling hook biting into steel.
They're not just hunting. They want his boat alive. U-505 breaches the surface like a wounded animal, rolling heavily, smoke pouring from her conning tower. The sea around her is a boiling circle of white water and floating debris. Wildcats orbit overhead, engines throttling back, pilots watching like hawks that have already made the kill. On the destroyer, USS Pillsbury, Lieutenant Junior Grade Albert L. David stands at the rail, eyes locked on the crippled submarine 200 yards away. He is 27 years old, soft-spoken, a Sunday school teacher in civilian life. Right now he is holding a .45 in one hand and a boarding axe in the other. Captain Daniel V. Gallery, commander of the entire task group, comes over the TBS loudspeaker, voice calm but electric. I want that boat intact. First man aboard gets a case of whiskey from me personally. David doesn't wait for orders. He is already sprinting aft to where the whaleboat is swinging out. The first grappling hooks are over. Lines snake across the gap. A 9-man boarding party. David, torpedoman's mate 3rd Class Arthur Knispel, radioman 2nd Class Stanley Wodakyak, and 6 others, leaps onto the submarine's heaving casing while machine gun bullets from U-505's dying gunners still snap overhead. They move like men possessed. Knispel slides down the conning tower ladder feet first into a cloud of smoke and cordite. He lands on something soft, a dead German sailor, and keeps going. Wodakyak is right behind him, clutching wire cutters and a flashlight. Below, Harold Lange is in the control room, pistol in hand, shouting the scuttling orders. Open the sea strainers, blow the charges. But the German crew is already breaking. Some are throwing their hands up the moment they see American faces. Others are too stunned, too deafened, too wounded to move. David storms through the boat compartment by compartment, kicking primed demolition charges overboard before they can detonate. He rips wires out of the radio room with his bare hands. In the diesel compartment, he finds a German engineer still trying to open the main induction valve. David knocks him cold with the butt of his pistol and slams the valve shut himself. 11 minutes. That is all it takes. 11 minutes from the first American boot on deck to the moment the Stars and Stripes breaks out over a German U-boat still at sea. The first enemy warship captured on the high seas by the U.S. Navy since 1815. On the bridge of Guadalcanal, Captain Gallery lowers his binoculars and whispers, almost reverently, "Jesus Christ, we actually did it." And somewhere below, in the flickering red darkness of a boat that was never supposed to be taken alive, Harold Lang sits on the chart table, head in his hands, staring at the impossible. His cipher books, his Enigma machine, his secret orders, everything the Kriegsmarine swore would go to the bottom first, now in American hands. The wolf has been dragged into the kennel, still breathing. The engines are dead. For the first time in years, U-505 is completely, unnaturally quiet. No diesels thumping, no ventilation fans, just the creak of steel cooling in the sun and the soft slap of waves against the hull. Harold Lang stands on the cigarette deck, wrists bound with signal cable, staring across 20 yards of water at the men who just stole his boat. American sailors are swarming over his submarine like ants on a prize, laughing, taking photographs, passing up bottles of Coca-Cola to the boarding party still below. One of them, a kid who can't be older than 19, waves cheerfully at the German prisoners lined up on Pillsbury's fantail. Lang doesn't wave back. Below, Lieutenant David and his team have opened every hatch, every seacock, every secret drawer. They carry out treasures no intelligence officer dared dream of. The current Kriegsmarine code books still wrapped in oilskin, the short signal book for June 1944, 4-rotor Enigma machine complete with spare wheels, acoustic torpedo homing tables, the exact grid squares where every other U-boat in the Atlantic is supposed to be right now. In Washington and London, grown men will weep when they see the haul, because this single capture will quietly shorten the war by months and save thousands of lives no one will ever count. But right now, in the humid African afternoon, the only sound is Captain Gallery's voice crackling over the loudhailer. "Welcome to the United States Navy, boys. From now on, your mailing address is USS Guadalcanal, care of the postmaster, New York." A few German sailors actually laugh, nervous, broken laughs. Some start to cry. Lang just stares at the tiny flight deck that ended his war, still unable to process how a ship barely longer than a destroyer launched the planes that crippled him in minutes. He remembers Donitz's last briefing in Berlin. The Americans can build ships, but they cannot fight submarines. They do not have the stomach for it. Lang looks at the 5 sleek destroyer escorts circling protectively, at the Wildcats still orbiting overhead like guardian angels, and the Stars and Stripes now snapping proudly from his own periscope mast. He whispers the only words that feel true anymore. Mein Gott, we never understood them at all. Far away, in a windowless room at Bletchley Park, a young woman named Joan Clark will soon open a signal that simply reads, "Captured Enigma material in transit. U-505 taken intact." She will drop her teacup. The pieces will scatter across the floor and no one will bother to pick them up. Because in that moment, the entire U-boat war dies quietly in the middle of the Atlantic and almost no one on Earth hears the sound.